I'm Ivan Gregorisian, your host today. Today with me, we got Bruno Moreno, our typical host. Bruno, hello. Discussing match 10 with Coach Michael Weston, Coach Sean Schimmel, and swimmer Tom Dean from LA Current, Cali Condors, and the London Roar, respectively. Guys, hello, and thank you so much for making it to this podcast. It means a ton for us.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us. It's an honor. Thank you.
And guys, sort of to start us off, can you tell me what did this match actually imply for each of your teams? Because at this point, you're 100% making it to the semifinals, and it seemed like each of the three teams made some very interesting strategical shifts in the lineup for the events. What was the mentality going into the match for each of you? Was it sort of just get through the match and expend as least amount of energy as possible, or was it to maybe make a statement? Because I mean, three of the finalists were present in this match, and maybe you're a little bit ego driven. Sean, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, first of all. And we had some discussions back and forth with the coaches and then as well with the team. But what it really came down to was, the whole time we were over in the Budapest bubble, we had been going, pedal, metal to the pedal and pedal down full force all the way. And, when it came down to this, even though maybe we were, fine for going to semifinals, it became pretty clear that the dynamic of the team wanted to continue and not let up at all. And we did maybe make a few changes, maybe here or there, but not really in our lineup. And the team really wanted to not so much make a statement, but just stay on track with how they had been performing, how they had been going out and racing. And we didn't want to change that, say, so close to semifinals and finals, and just continue what we were doing. It was working so far. And, obviously we got to match 10 and we had some of the best performances that they've had all along for some people. And so we just kept progressing. And I'm glad that we did it that way. And so, with that being said, we had the opportunity to maybe change some things, but we didn't really change a lot. The team really came together, their dynamic and their unity. They didn't want to lose. They did not want to lose. It's not necessarily about just continuing to win, but they didn't want to lose. They wanted to keep the ball rolling, and it was working for us. So,
thank you, Sean, for sure. And then Sharon, I mean, your stars, Caleb Dressel, Olivia Smaliga, they raced quite a bunch in this match, although it seemed like they didn't necessarily need to.
Yeah, and that was part of the discussion. Should maybe we try to give them a little bit, a little bit of a refresher and out maybe a couple of events, or switch it around a little bit. And, that's not really what they're all about at all. Their competitiveness came through, the strength of who they are as people and as elite athletes came through, and they're like, no, let's go, and you mentioned both Caleb and Olivia, both of them are captains. And I think it just spoke well of their work ethic and their training and how they train, how they take care of their bodies, not only in Budapest, but, year round. And I think that allowed them to go back-to-back events all the time. It allowed them to go through all the matches as we did, and get better and better, because their performances, semis and finals was really when they hit their best times over there. And so I just think that spoke well of them and what they've put in. And so they didn't need to back off. They just could just keep going, pressing hard. Even though that was some of the discussion, but the discussion was short-lived, to tell you the truth. Both Caleb and Olivia and the rest of the team were like, no, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah. And talking about those stars, I mean, Michael, on the other hand, on the LA Current side, I mean, Sean described and the feeling that the athletes never wanted to sit out and still compete. Was it the same for the LA Current, especially taking into account the amount of stars that you were going to face, and knowing also that you were already into those semifinals?
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, we knew, Kelly was always stacked with stars on paper. Similar mindset though. We went into every match trying to win. That was always going to be our mindset. We were never going to pull any punches from match to match. And I think going into match 10, we were conscious of our place and Iron's place at that point. I think we were relatively similar in points. And for us, while we were already in the semi-final, we were also conscious of which semi-final we could be in. So we had kind of like I guess you would say, a loose plan. Like obviously there's things that happen day by day and race by race and match by match that you can't necessarily control. But we definitely put our best foot forward to ensure that we got into the semi-final that we felt was, more suited for our swimmers. And coming up against, Kelly in London, it's definitely makes you think a lot race by race. I feel like both of those teams have different strengths and weaknesses, and both of them kind of push on our weaknesses a little bit. So, we definitely had to be well prepared mentally, I think, for that match.
Sure.
Ever talk with the athletes about, okay, it doesn't matter if we do not get a victory hit, because on the past matches you've been placing first or second position. So how was that talk with the athletes, considering what you were gonna face?
Yeah, I think again, we went in with the mindset that we were just going to give it our best every time. And so if we happen to come away with, the victory overall on the match, then that was good. But we know that if we came second in a match like this and we gave it our all, then, we were going to be, I guess, as pleased as you can be for not winning the match. So the athletes, we prepared them. Some of them like to look at, who was racing what event and what times they would need to go to potentially win. Other athletes didn't want to know that. So everybody individually was prepared based off what they felt they needed for that match.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Tom, so we already heard the perspective of two of these coaches from the LA Current and Cali Condor. So from an athlete's perspective, how are you looking at this match, and also considering that you arrived late to the bubble because of some protocols with other of your teammates? So how was adapting for you, especially in this match, and help you in order to perform better at the semifinals and finals, where you, in other words, crush it, man?
I think, as was mentioned, every athlete goes into every race wanting to be successful and wanting to swim quickly. No one's ever taken a foot off the gas to try and save themselves for the following week, whatever it might be. So when you have athletes who all have this competitive mindset and who approach racing in a similar fashion, then no matter whether it's match 1 or match 10, the final or one of the heats, they want to go in and swim quickly and win their races ultimately. So it is very much down to the coaches, the team managers, to make those tactical changes. So it was up to Mel for the London team. We had complete trust in her to make the right call, and I think she definitely did that. She rested the right people up. She made the correct changes for it to play out well. In the semi and the final, the two most important clashes of the whole 6 weeks. So it was out of the athlete's hands. Obviously, if you're a swimmer and you're told, okay, you're doing this event, and this event, then that's it. That's all you need to know. Then you just get your head down and deliver on the day. So it was an interesting approach, but I think everyone on the team had the same mindset going in.
Yeah, and before we start discussing the events, Tom, just tell me, because you're a teammate of Adam Peaty on the British team, just tell me what he said to the team and to yourself, knowing that he was not going to participate in order to rest to that semi-final and final, as you mentioned, the strategy taken by Mel.
It was almost, Peaty not racing on that match was almost exciting, because you knew he was building up for these amazing performances in the semi and the final. And, it almost made the team more hungry, knowing that there was, more to come in the races to follow. So that was quite exciting, actually. And I think it was a really good call by Mel. Obviously, she knows Adam better than anyone else, knows her athletes inside out. So yeah, I think it almost spurred us on slightly more, knowing that we had an extra gear that we could shift up to when we got to the semi and the final.
Wow. I think that shows the strong spirit and strong will of the London Roar, because I believe 90% of the teams would think, oh no, Star is not racing. I mean, they're at a disadvantage. This is not going to go well, but not you guys. You guys have got more hungry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with that, let's dive into the match itself. And the first event I wanted to discuss with you guys is the male 400 freestyle. And Sean, my first question goes to you. You guys are represented by Thomas Peribonio and Kadar Bakla in this event. And while Kadar is a all-time performer in this event for you guys, he's been racing in the 400 freestyle quite a bit. Not so much for Peribonio. And it seems like the obvious pick for this event would be Townley Haas. Why didn't Townley race this?
Yeah, that was one of the things when it came down to 10. We still had some decisions to make with lineups and so forth going into semifinals and finals. Just trying to gather as much information with the athletes, and especially Thomas there. We already had a lot of information on Townley, and we had a good idea on what he was going to be able to do, especially through the semi and the finals. So we really wanted to see where Thomas was at this point, and what he was going to be doing. And Kadar, we know he would be in there battling right up there, hopefully getting in the top 2 or 3. But it was more about gathering information, not so much about like we were asked just earlier about resting or giving people an event off or anything like that. It was more about for this particular one with that scenario, just trying to find as much information as possible. Coach Jonty was outstanding with his data. He would crunch numbers 24/7, and just trying to give us the best edge going in to semis and finals, and trying to find out that information. And so that's kind of where I think those changes came about. And I don't think it hurt Townley not being in that at all. And he had a great 200 in this match, and he had he swam really well. He just got better and better. The 6 weeks that we were over there, if you watch his progressions, he's one of the ones that had a big gap and a big upswing from where he started on match 1 to where we finished at the final. So I think it was fine. It didn't hurt him at all. And I think at this whole match was so close. I mean, it was only like maybe 63 points. I was looking at it earlier between us in London, and how tight that is really in this type of format. So it was never really like, okay, we're fine at all, ever. Because like any event could swing that. But I think that's just why we had those two in there to gather more information moving on.
Okay, it makes sense, Sean. Thank you. And you mentioned that you kind of wanted to see where Thomas was at in this 400 freestyle. And I'm assuming 3:52:11 isn't quite what you were looking for.
No, not at all.
But let's say, let's just imagine he swam like a 3:42:43. Does this mean you would like to potentially in the semifinal or final free Townley of the 400 freestyle, put Thomas in there, but then what would you exchange the 400 freestyle for Townley potentially? Or maybe you would like to free Kadar from this event.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think we really, obviously we didn't have to make that decision. The information, allowed us just to go with probably what our gut feeling was anyway. But Thomas had been better than the 3:52, and he just didn't really swim on that particular 400 where he was capable of swimming. So we didn't have to make that decision, and we were able to just when it came down to it at the end of the day in semifinals and finals, we were able to go with our best lineup as it turned out. So we didn't have to worry about not putting Townley in the 400. So.
Yeah, actually, a few matches prior, Tom broke his national record with a 3:48. So he had been faster than that.
Yep. Yeah,
Yes.
he had before.
And Tom, I mean, for you, you're a participant of this race. And I mean, 3:41.91, great result. You got third. My first question to you is, how would you access the performance of James Guy? Because James Guy has typically been a very consistent teammate for you and Team JB. And whenever you needed the guy to perform up to a level, he would always perform. But it seemed like, especially the qualification stage of this ISL bubble, didn't really work out for James as well. He obviously got a little bit more in shape towards semifinal and final. But in general, he seemed a little bit off of his game. Would you agree with me, or?
I think the difficult thing about this ISL was everyone was coming in with completely different levels of preparation from all over the world. Everyone's countries have had varying levels of restriction. People have had, some people have been unable to train. Some people have been completely fine. So it's quite tough to look at it, just at the numbers of the times people are swimming this competition without observing the preparation beforehand. And in the case of James, obviously he's my training partner. We do every session together. Dave, our coach, has been coaching us, for a year and a half now in the same squad. So we've had very similar preparation, but because, being in the UK, we had all that time out of the water during lockdown. And then when we finally started to build back in the few weeks prior to the ISL, as you mentioned, there was disruption within the training environment, and our squad had to isolate for, I think it was 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks or something along those lines. So we had this big chunk of work taken away from us, completely unexpected. We, couldn't see it coming. We hadn't done any, big aerobic work. We hadn't done a big block of training prior to it. And then the next thing, we were getting on a plane and flying out to Budapest off the back of coming, out of isolation and not being able to train. So our whole squad was slightly unsure about how it was going to pan out. And Jimmy and I didn't have the best starting rounds. I was fortunate enough in that I was able to make the drops in the semi and the final and get back to, the times I've been swimming the year before and near my PBs and things like that. But yeah, I mean, we were going 3:42s, 3:43s, some pretty average 400 frees for, two people who have been 3:36s. Jimmy's a world silver medalist in the long course 400 free. Like, he's an exceptional middle distance freestyler. So I think he just suffered slightly because of the, less than ideal preparation that we both had going into it. And I think he unfortunately wasn't able to make those same drops over the course of the 6 weeks that I was lucky enough to be able to. So I think he will have had a tough time. And I know he told me that he said he found it tough. And obviously he wants to deliver, not just for himself, but for the team, like we all do. So it was difficult, and it wasn't, ideal preparation in the lead up to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Tom, you mentioned making those drops into the semifinals and the final, and some of your teammates, as Jimmy mentioned, they did not. But why did you think you were able to do this? Was kind of in your mindset? What was happening there? And also, did you think you were going to change the way you train? Because after taking that break during quarantine and seeing the results, like PBs in the 400 freestyle, taking that victory in the final against Anas Raptis, I mean, what is going to change in your training leading into next year?
I think to answer your first question, it's difficult to approach another race, another 400 freestyle. Obviously, we had a bunch of them back to back over the course of the 6 weeks, and it's tough to get yourself mentally prepared to get back on the blocks, having done some pretty poor performances in the weeks prior, some, not the good prep that you need before, not the block of training you need behind you for a 400 free, and to step on the blocks and say, okay, this time's going to be different. This time is going to be back at my best. I'm going to be really powerful. I'm not going to, I'm going to come back strong. I'm going to have the back end, all this kind of stuff. So it was a real mental challenge going into it for all of us, especially me and Jimmy. And that's something I found quite tough. I think I was fortunate enough in the maybe age is slightly more on my side. I'm 20 and Jimmy's 25. So I think I was just lucky that I'm able to kind of hold on to some gains for a little bit longer and slightly get away with it at the short course level. as the weeks progressed. But yeah, it was tough going into those last two races. But it was almost like a snowball effect. Once the results started to come and I started feeling better, then the confidence just pushes you on with the momentum that you have from your results. To answer the second question about training, it is really interesting actually. You know, having time out of the water and still being able to PB and you know deliver some good results in the semi and the final. It's been looked at. I mean, it's been looked at by a lot of people in back here in the UK. They're starting to say, okay, do we need to maybe change the way we approach our training? And you know, is time off not as detrimental as we once thought it was? So I think it's changed a lot of attitudes towards training. But I think short course racing, you're able to get away with it slightly more. There's not really anywhere to hide in a 50-meter pool, which is what it's all about. So we're fortunate enough to be back in doing, you know, big blocks of training, getting the work in that I need to be doing, getting ready for the long course season now.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Short course and long course are two different questions.
Mm-hmm.
One more question regarding this event. I mean, in the ISL format, there's not much space, I believe, for swimmers to really have a lot of strategy in their events and have a look at their competitors. It's really all 50s, skins, 100s. 400 freestyle, you can really play with the strategy and have a look at your competitors. Did you see Mikhail Romanchuk swimming throughout this race?
Did I what, sorry? Throughout this race?
Did you see Mikhail Romanchuk next to you during this race, or was he just, you only saw him after the event, what he was doing?
Yeah, I mean, that, like you said, you've got much more of an awareness of the other athletes in a longer race, and tactics play a much bigger part. And yeah, I'm always kind of aware of where the other athletes are sitting, be it James or Rapsis or you know whoever's around me. I've always got an awareness of where they are, and especially towards the semi and the final, having been able to watch how you know people are starting to swim it, you get an idea of how you can use people's race tactics against them, and what you need to do and when you need to push on and how you need to attack the race. So yeah, the longer races you do have the ability to kind of have a little look around, see where people are, see how it's going, and then if you need to tweak your race plan, do it accordingly, which is what I did.
Tom, just a question about your personal preference. Is it easier to race against someone like Danastapsis, who takes it out really fast and then fades a little bit and you try to catch up on him? Or is it harder to race against someone like Mikhail Romanchuk, who almost back halves his 400 freestyle and you know he's lurking somewhere behind, getting closer with every stroke? Do you have a personal preference who to race?
I mean, personally, if I can race someone who goes out quick and I can hang with them at the start, then I know I'll have the back end, and you know, then it's just like who's got, you know, who can dig deeper at the end. I think it's an interesting almost case study racing against Rapsis in the semi-final and the final, because he swam them quite differently and we both raced them quite differently. You know, in the semi-final, he went out very quickly and I was able to close him down on the back end, fortunately, and get him on the touch. But then in the final, I was expecting him to swim a similar race plan, and he actually held back quite a little bit. I remember getting to the 200-meter mark, kind of looking around, thinking, where on earth is he? He's going to come back like a freight train, surely. You know, if he's going out in a much slower time than he normally does, and he's been out, you know, 1:45 in the past. So I was a little bit on edge, and I was thinking, okay, I'm really going to have to kick on and kind of go at it on my own for this back end here. And he did kick on, but luckily I was able to hold him off. So yeah, it's interesting, and sometimes you're never quite sure how people are going to swim it.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah. It seems like you guys have real mind game going on in there. I wish we could meet your minds as the event.
Yeah.
Talking about this 400 freestyle, Michael, and the next event which we are going to discuss, which is the 200 free. I mean, I wanted to discuss with you specifically about Fernando Schäfer, because as a team, the LA Current was very, very consistent since the first match until the final, basically. They started swimming very fast. They maintained that rhythm and improved a lot of the swimmers at the end. And it seems that Fernando Schäfer did always this thing in the 200 freestyle and the 400 freestyle. He was always consistent, scoring points for the team. So how would you address his performance here with a 142.70 for finishing in third place, only behind Vekovichev of Russia, here representing London, and Townley Haas from the Cali Condors?
Yeah, I think our whole Brazilian contingent on LA did a fantastic job, coming in day one and finishing off in the final with their consistency. Felipe, who was our home coach from Brazil, did a great job with working with his home coach back in Brazil, just managing their workload and figuring out when was the right time pre-match or between matches to push them quite hard, and when it was time to ease them down. With Fernando specifically, he was definitely a very strong competitor. He didn't like losing. You saw that in match number one, where he really took it out to the field and gave everyone a bit of a scare with his win in the 200. And yeah, I think he managed to hold that speed relatively well over match by match. And match 10, I think when you have a look at the quality of the field there, he knew he had his work cut out for him. But the mindset doesn't change in that case. You have to race in your lane, and you have to do the things that that you have done really well in training. And if you hold your race metrics correct, then that you're going to come away with your result. There's not much you can really do about what everyone else is doing in their lanes. But if you race your race, you're going to be there or thereabouts. And Fernando was really good at getting those details right, and getting really hungry at the back 100 to always come home on as close as he could to winning the race.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and you mentioned that strategy. What do you think is the best strategy? I mean, for the LA current swimmers that you had during the season to swim the 200 freestyle, because as Tom mentioned before, rap season, a lot of people try to swim these races in a different way. Short course meters especially, what do you think is the best strategy for a swimmer, let's say Fernando Schaeffer or, I don't know, Jacob Hartmann to do?
That's good. That's an interesting question. I think, as I kind of said, everybody's different. And I think, when you're going through your training phases and when you're preparing for every match, you've got to understand, I suppose, what your strengths and weaknesses are. Not everybody can, go out super fast. And some people can do the opposite. And you look at, I guess, the 100, and you look at somebody like Caleb Dressel and somebody like Kyle Chalmers, they race in two completely different, almost opposite manners. And so I think it's the same here. Like both Jacob and Fernando knew, what their strength was. If they tried to go out at the same speed as somebody like Dennis, then, that back end is going to hurt a lot more. They're going to build up the lactic a little bit more than they're probably used to. And those are things that they probably don't train towards. So, it's being patient and understanding that Dennis is going to race his race, or whoever's going to be leading out in front is going to race their race. And they've just got to stay strong to, what they train metrically. And then you're gonna have a good race anyway.
Thanks, Michael. And Tom, talking now about the 200 freestyle completely. You swam a 1:43.31, and you were joined by your Russian teammate Mihaly Vikalishev, 1:42.34.
Mm-hmm.
Were you at all thrown off that it wasn't James Guy, it wasn't Duncan Scott racing next to you, it was Mihaly Vikalishev? And how happy were you for him about this performance? Because I believe that's quite a bit of a breakthrough performance for Mihaly during the season. We've seen him perform like this in the Russian nationals and at the Europeans prior to this. But in terms of ISL, this was quite the statement made from Mihaly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with the 200 free in London, there's always a lot of people to pick from. Obviously, got myself, Jimmy, Duncan, and Misha. So obviously you can only pick two. So it's always a bit of a gamble. And Misha's very consistent. He won 42 threes. I think he dropped a few of them as it went on. I'm pretty sure he's been 141 in the past. Duncan is a phenomenal 200 freestyler, and he showed that as he just got quicker and quicker through the rounds with that 140 at the end, which was amazing. So it was always quite a tactical choice with the 200 freestyle based on what other events Duncan had, and that was dictated by which other teams we were going against and who different people had put in. So it's like a knock-on effect. Whatever other teams there are, you need to put Duncan on certain events, which means he may or may not swim the 200 free, which means myself or Jimmy or Misha may be picked as well. So yeah, it was quite a tactical choice. I'd swum it against Duncan, and I don't think I saw him against Jimmy, but yeah, this was my first time going against Misha, and yeah, it was a great time from him. 142, as I said, he's been very consistent. I'm a 142 low, 200 freestyler as well, so I was a little bit off where I wanted to be, but I knew that was going to come had I got another chance at it. And my 200 free and 400 free times kind of were quite similar, and they both dropped at the same time. So yeah, it was a really great performance from him, and like you said, a good statement to send out.
Yeah.
When you race the 200 freestyle, is it like a continuous sprint for you pretty much? And do you change your technique on the 200 versus the 400 at all?
Yeah, so 200 free short course is pretty much like a long sprint almost, and you really have to get your rate up. There's no hanging around. I prefer long course racing personally, just because of the way my stroke is. It's kind of a longer stroke. I can really kind of lean on it and settle into it quite a lot as the 50s progress. So yeah, short course racing, you just got to get your rate up. Off every wall. There's no hanging around, because before you know it, you're turning and you're off again. So yeah, it's quite different, and you have to attack it from the start. You have to be aggressive. You can't hang around, because it's just gone in a flash with the short course 200 free.
Yeah, and just to finish things here in the 200 freestyle with you, Tom, I wanted to ask you, because at the 2016 Olympic Games, Team Great Britain took that silver medal in the 4x2, but it seemed that 1 week of that really was a little bit weak, and maybe if they had another swimmer, they could have been better, who knows, on that stage. And in 2018, they found that young guy in you, and nowadays you are splitting 146 in long course mirrors. So how confident you and your teammates are leading into, hopefully, this year's Olympics?
Yeah, the 4x2 has always been a really strong event for GB. We've got real great depth in that event, and we have done for the last few years. They've been very dominant. As you said, it was a great honour to be part of that team in 2018 at my first senior competition in Europeans. 2019, we didn't quite get the result we wanted in South Korea, but it was a fingertip. There was really nothing in it. And yeah, like you said, my times personally have progressed a lot since then. 146.0 last year, just coming back from Australia after a camp, unrested, untapered. So that was a great result. I'm training with Jimmy every day. His times are just getting quicker and quicker. Duncan's, a formidable force in the 200 freestyle, a 144 long athlete himself. So it really is just that fourth member that we can find, and that's going to ultimately dictate how we perform in the summer. But I'm extremely confident that we're going to have a great result in that event.
Thanks, Tom. By the way, Fred Anderson is performing, you might as well just put Fred Anderson in this relay and see how
anchoring it. Yeah.
And Sean, I wanted to ask you this question because Ivan asked you before that why not putting Townley Haas on that 400 freestyle, but right now that we are discussing the 2 free, we saw what Townley was able to do that. 141.84 just in match 10 almost got that American record that at the time had Ryan Lochte. He broke it with that 140. But it seemed that prior to this season of ISL, Townley was not the swimmer that we always think he could be on short course mirrors, comparing to his short course yards. And you being at the University of Georgia and knowing the NC2A system and Townley's career, I guess, and as a swimmer in the ISL, why will you say that Townley had this breakout meet in short course mirrors this season?
Yeah, I think everybody is different, as it was mentioned, and kind of like, his progression while we were over there was a pretty big swing, and everybody got to the bubble, like Tom was saying, in a very different spot. Like some clusters of people had good work behind them, some didn't, some were more tired, some came out of isolation like Tom. So it was like a lot of people were in very different spots. But, I don't coach Townley. I only, really got to know him a little bit there and spent time with him there. But I think that, short course yards, you have all of this racing. Here in the States, we grow up with that. It's in our wheelhouse. And his success there at NC2A is kind of driven from all of that, experience. And then, quite frankly, we just don't race short course meters, as much or like that even compared to long course. And so I think being over there, kind of, you got to look at where he was coming in. And then every time we got to race, every time we got to train short course meters, that's just, added to his wheelhouse, added to his confidence in regards to what he could do. And I think he all along kind of had those goals in mind by the end, that he was going to get that American record. And so he was continually trying to set himself up for that with his training, with his races. And I think just that had a big part of it, all of that short course meters racing and being able to set it up like that. I can't really speak to what he had done in the past short course meters compared to his short course yard success, but I think having all of that access, being in the bubble the whole time, being focused on what we were doing, obviously his training leading up to that point, and then the way he kind of went through that work period and then rest period getting into finals, I think really added it up. I mean, obviously, if you look at how he's swimming that, everyone swims it a little bit differently, but, he really has a pretty firm understanding of how to swim that well. In terms of his splitting, in terms of taking it out, pretty strong, but then still being very consistent on those last 350. So I think that's how he was able to put that together for this race and then get better as we went through semis and finals.
Thank you, Sean. And with this being said, let's hop into the next event, and it is the female 100 meters butterfly, first event of the match. And Tom, my first question goes to you. Aliyah Atkinson and Marie Wattell for the London Roar. 57.21 from Aliyah and 56.50 from Marie. First of all, we spoke about listing the stars of the teams. And just when you expect Aliyah to get a little bit of a break before the semis and the final, you put her in the 100 fly. Do you know how was Aliyah responding to this? Because actually 57.2 is a whole 9/10 faster than the last 100 fly she did. So you can sure see the improvement there. But was she at all happy about the finding herself in the 100 meters butterfly? And how did the team respond? Was it kind of a little bit of a meme or?
Aliyah's, the probably of all the athletes on the team, the best team player, I'd say on the whole, absolutely happy to help out in any way she could, and obviously delivering some phenomenal results throughout the whole competition. But yeah, I mean, I think she just took that same mindset that we all did. You get put in an event, you don't start questioning it, you don't start doubting it. It's just, step up and deliver for the team, and try and get those points, which was so important. And there have been absolutely no complaints. She will have stepped up and dropped a really, really amazing time, and with that great team spirit. So I think it almost spurred people on, seeing people do events they don't normally race, and being happy to do it and doing it for the team. And yeah, I'd say it was just a force for good.
Thanks, Tom. And what about Marie? Was she happy about this performance? Because she typically finds herself in the top 2, top 3 max. Here it seemed like, 56.5 isn't a result to be ashamed of whatsoever. But was she happy about the placement? Because I know Marie sometimes takes things a little harsh on herself.
Yeah, I think, because it's so place orientated, the whole competition, that sometimes you can swim some pretty very decent times and the placings just aren't there because of the caliber of athlete that you're up against. So, I'm trying to rack my brain to remember her reaction all the way back then after that specific swim. But I'm sure it would have been, probably slightly frustrated that it wasn't the place you wanted, but, just get your head down and move on and get on to the next swim, and leave that at the door. I think that was probably how she approached it.
Thanks, Tom. Do you get out of your way sometimes when you see like a teammate that's down a little bit to encourage them, or was there a lot of that kind of stuff going on in the ISL bubble, or was everyone on the riding the high all the time and there was no need for that?
Yeah, I've never been to a competition like the ISL before in my life. The team spirit that you have was, especially not in the UK, you don't get anything like that over in the UK, and everyone being so positive and, congratulating everyone, even if the results weren't there. And I think that spurred people on to want to deliver the results for the team, and to get that praise and to feel like you're contributing. So I think, people helped pick people up when they were down and really kind of rode that high when they were doing well, which was a lot of the time for the London team, luckily.
Thank you so much, Tom.
And Sean, I mean, you mentioned being there at the University of Georgia. The Cali Condors was a team that had a lot of Georgia Bulldog swimmers there, Natalie Hines being one of them. So tell me about the environment between the Georgia swimmers that were there at the with the Cali Condors, and also the performance of Kelsey here in this 100 butterfly, being always consistent swimming in those 55s and getting those jackpots sometimes in this occasion, those great points for the team.
Yeah, I think one of the strengths of the Cali Condors, the way Jason went about kind of trying to pick the team and so forth, we had a bunch of different clusters from around the world or around the country. And then when those clusters, say like the Georgia Bulldog cluster came in, they were also so tight, and that dynamic is great. And then how, it pretty easily, it was just very natural for those big clusters like ours or in Florida to kind of come together and just become a much bigger, stronger team. And so having all of the Bulldogs, on the same squad over there with the Cali Condors was just a real benefit. And I mean, that also includes from the past as well, like Allison Schmidt, Haley Flickener, and Gunnar, who Gunnar had just gone to Texas to start working with Eddie. But like having all those people in there, I think was a huge strength for the Condors over the whole period, and also for our athletes. I mean, it really benefited us in regards to our training, because, we knew we were going to stick to our training. We knew what we were going to get. We knew how we were going to do it. And having that many of your teammates with you from your day-to-day at home here in Georgia to go to Budapest in the bubble, I think just helps with being comfortable in what you're doing. Maybe, it's a tough adjustment for everybody, but maybe helps the adjustment a little bit more. So I think having everybody in on that was really beneficial for us, and the whole, not only the Bulldogs, but the whole dynamic of the Cali Condors. And, Natalie Hines, this was one, I think she only maybe swam the 100 fly maybe twice. She was typically in the 100 freestyle. And so, but I mean, this was a great swim for her. We got the points there. This was just about like her best time or right on her best time. So it was a really, really strong performance for her. And I actually think in this case right here, it was, again, we were trying to gather some information. And, twofold here. We thought it'd be good for Natalie to swim something different, just to get another 100 fly in. But then also we had to see some things in the 100 freestyle. We wanted to see where Leah Neal was. We wanted to see what she was going to be capable of moving forward, and kind of gather as much data and information we could going into semifinals and finals. So I think that was one of the reasons for the decision on that change here. But Kelsey, whoever we were putting in the 100 flies, I mean, right, the 100 fly started the thing. The women's 100 fly match one, Kelsey's out there. No one in the world competed for 7 months. And it's like, we get out there and she just, like a champ every time starts off the match, and she's either getting her hand on the wall first or right there. And just like this one, and she was one of the ones that came into the bubble. She had great work behind her. There's no doubt about it. So maybe she was a little bit more tired in the beginning. There's a point where she got really tired from the training because she didn't let up at all, and getting better and better here. And I remember this race, and actually, I mean, Burrell, they're such competitors, and Burrell is so good. Like, she had such a great match 10, Burrell did. She scored so many points in match 10 for London. And I actually remember watching this, and, it's just so too close to call. And I thought Kelsey had her right at the finish there. She was gaining just a little bit, and I thought she had her, but obviously she didn't. But for that, it was kind of like a little breakthrough for Kelsey in terms of getting down there and getting another 55 in there, and how important that was for setting us up going into semifinals and finals. There's some some of the coaches who were working with Kelsey, you know, Johnny and Schrader, Brian Schrader with her underwaters and kind of tweaking that just a little bit. And I think that progression, you know, started coming around in match 10 there for her. And she was kind of able to take that on into semifinals and finals.
Yeah, definitely.
And,
A good race.
Guys, unfortunately, we do have a swimmer on this podcast that is very busy and does have workouts he has to run to.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tom, I believe you have to go. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm sorry I have to leave early, guys, but I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Take
care.
Take care. Tom. Following podcast, you still have semifinals and finals you have to comment on.
Absolutely.
Great. We will see.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And with this being said, Michael, Ali Tetzloff and Beryl Gastadello. I mean, I believe this was one of the best events for the LA Current in the entire match, because some of the events you were kind of expected to do very well. Like, for example, the women's 100 freestyle, you were the favorites. Here, of course, Ali and Beryl were favorites in a sense. But I mean, but for both of them, these times are amazing. 55.71 for Beryl, 56.46 for Ali. What a way to start off the match. How did the team react after this? Were you guys pumped after this performance?
Yeah, I think the way that we swam the 100 flies throughout each match really carried the team's momentum over. Obviously, in the semi and the final, we rode Beryl's high every single time. 2019, you know, Ali T didn't really get a chance to do a lot of the individual events. She spent a lot of time on the relay. The coaching team gave her a good shot around match 3 for us, our third match, and she took it with both hands and kind of accelerated forward from there, and she got better and better every match, and so she became a staple there. Same with Beryl. You know, we spent the first couple of matches trying to figure out what our best combination of a 100 fly was. You had Kendall in there, who's a world silver medalist. You've got a bunch of other girls who can swim a pretty nippy 100 fly when they need to. But I think these two girls really took it and stepped up when the team needed. And we needed that momentum, you know, coming in against the likes of Kelly in London. And B just has a way about her of she just finds a way to get her hand to the wall first, no matter what. And this was almost an opposite swim of the final that we saw later, where Kelsey went out faster than B, and B came back on top of both her and Sarah. And this one, B went out a little bit faster than she probably normally does, and then just kind of managed to, you know, find a way to hold on. And, you know, 0.01 it's a good way to finish the race. Hard on Kelsey, but, you know, a win's a win at the end of the day.
For sure.
Exactly. And talking about, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of more words, sorry, Bruno, about this 100 meters butterfly for Beryl. Michael, when I actually had a podcast with Beryl the day before yesterday, and she mentioned that she treats freestyle as her main stroke, if we count out of the 3. And in my personal understanding of this, backstroke was a little bit of her baby prior to this. And butterfly is not a new addition, I would say, but something more of a third stroke. Yet 55.71 is mind-boggling. Do you see Beryl sort of focusing a little bit more on the fly for the next season, and potentially we can see some absolute insanity from her in this event?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I was lucky enough to be kind of like adopted by B over there and kind of helped her out with a lot of her trainings and her race preparation. Yeah, I think the butterfly started off as something that, you know, she knew she was good at the 50. You know, she's a 24/7, so you nothing to, you know, write home about in terms of how fast that is. But the 100 was something that she never really felt, I don't think, overly confident with at the start. Obviously, as soon as she raced it once, the confidence grew, and, you know, when you give a French girl some confidence, you know, they're going to go pretty well with that. And she is very much a confidence machine. The more confidence that B can get, you know, the harder it is for anybody to get up on the blocks next to her and beat her. And she's a technician underwater. She has very good feel for the angle that she needs to come off the wall and the angle of her underwater, how many underwater kicks she needs to do. In training, she'll ask me a question about, is my wrist on a weird angle? And, she's very, very detailed in what she does preparation wise. And I feel like that preparation really carried through to some of these races. And I feel like you probably will start seeing her taking the butterfly a little bit more seriously now. I'd say, again, from my perspective, and B, don't kill me for saying this, but her fly might be her second stroke now, and may be overtaking the backstroke in terms of, where it can go, where the ceiling actually is for her. And as we know, fly and free go pretty well together, so they're pretty easily trained. So I think for her, the ceiling is quite high for butterfly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Her second stroke being now butterfly. But that leads us to a question that I wanted to ask you, to both Michael and Sean. Beryl, and you talked, Michael, about Beryl's confidence. And I believe ISL has gave that to her, especially after season 1, when she had those breakout meets right now in season 2, establishing as a swimming superstar of the ISL and on the international stage. So how much do you think the ISL is gonna help those young swimmers to gain that confidence and hopefully to develop them into those superstars and help them in their professional careers?
Yeah, I think it just gives them the opportunity to race. If you're not in the American system and you don't get those opportunities through NCAA to race, like I speaking from experience back here in New Zealand, like my swimmer coming over, she got to swim more in a 6 to 7 week span than sometimes we would in a year or two short course. So that race experience that you get from it does build confidence. And then if you happen to race next to somebody that is, you watch on TV all the time, or you read about on SwimSwam or any of the other websites, then that does build confidence when you're next to them, you're on their hip, or you're beating them, or you have a chance to, even just for some of our swimmers, just race against some of these guys for the first time. And hopefully now that you'll start to see that reflected season by season at ISL, flowing over to some of their long course meets where people aren't getting up at the blocks at the Olympics worried about what that person in lane 4 is doing, because you've raced them 6 times at ISL last season and you may have actually taken them down a couple. So I think confidence wise, it's going to help these swimmers just gather some data about themselves and about their competitors that you don't get in any other meet across the world.
Yeah. What about for you, Sean? Is it the same?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I mean, the opportunity, in particular in this unique situation with the pandemic, that we were able to go over there and get all of that racing in 6 weeks is just, I thought, a huge foothold, a huge benefit for everybody that was over there. And all of the athletes at ISL are elite athletes. I mean, top to bottom, right? They're all elite athletes no matter what. But and I think this held true for coaches as well, at least from my perspective. The educational and the learning opportunities in that situation for 6 weeks was extraordinary. And so, not everybody is Caleb or Beryl or, Olivia Smoliga, but maybe the ones that are the next level or 2 down, but they go over there and they get to spend 6 weeks in regards to watching them be able to put together, 4 races within 2 hours. You get to watch them, see how they take care of themselves in between sessions and races. And then on top of that, it was the training. So some of these other athletes that maybe aren't at that level yet, able to train, side by side, stroke for stroke with, in our squad, name anybody, just the current, like with Caleb or with Olivia and, Beryl or Tom Shields or Ryan Murphy, whoever it might be, and that's a educational and learning experience that you're not going to get anywhere else, especially for that period of time. And I felt there were similar opportunities, so many opportunities for coaches as well to take advantage of those learning opportunities. So if it wasn't for the platform of ISL, that wouldn't be there. So that's only going to add to their ability to take the next step up, to gain more confidence, to become better at their craft, both training wise and taking care of themselves wise and competition wise. It's like the opportunity to go over there and be a sponge and just soak it all up, to make yourself better and get to that next level that you want to get to was extraordinary. So, I really agree with that as well. I'll just say, like, for example, Baril, like by match 10, she was just lighting it up, and like to go off what Ivan said, like 55.7 for your third stroke for fly. I mean, come on, take that, right? And so it's like, and I think a lot of people found out how we're able to raise the ceiling in regards to what they thought was possible. Whether it was the top stars or people that were maybe relay only swimmer. So I think those opportunities were there.
You mentioned the learning experiences on the side of the swimmers, but both of you, Michael and Sean, as coaches, what is the biggest takeaway you take from this bubble that you will start implementing or that you have already started to do it?
Yeah, I think I'm a relatively newer coach, probably compared to a lot of the coaches over here. In New Zealand, we don't have a lot of opportunities to learn from our experienced coaches. Most of them move on pretty quickly. So, for me, the first 10 days, I probably sponged up more information from Dave Marsh and Dave Durden, Kim Bracken, Jack Roach than I probably have in any amount of time back here in New Zealand. That's just asking questions and watching swimmers. And Marsh was very good at telling me to go over there and watch this person warm up and bring back a couple of ideas and, question everything. Look at every swimmer, question everything, getting to be alongside, watch Ryan Murphy and watch Tom Shields and Beryl and what they do, not just in the water. I think how they carry themselves out of the water was very important for me personally. And, what I probably came away from the most is how important the recovery side of it was. Like, I feel like we were doing a pretty good job over here, with our swimmers at our home club, getting some of the recovery stuff. But, going over there and watching, say, Tokyo stretch for an hour and a half before they went to the pool, some of the practices these other teams and these other cultures do was next level. And, Tom and Ryan talked about, they sleep 12 hours before matches, and they're always on the massage guns, or they have the hyperized systems going. They're very routined on their pre-pull. It's 45 minutes of this, or, and I think for me, that was probably the biggest learning. It wasn't necessarily just the in-pull, stroke mechanical or tactical or movement pattern work, but it was actually the before and the after, and the attention to detail that the elite athletes and the elite coaches put on those types of practices. And feel like since coming back now, I've been able to implement that at a much higher level and understand, how long and why and the order of how you do the preparation, and I've been able to relay that back to the athletes pretty well.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I mean, one of the things I was really grateful for coming out of ISL was, the relationships with coaches, with the athletes, with people I've never known before, building on the relationships with the people I had known, with my own swimmers, building those relationships, all of that. And so those relationships for 6 weeks, it was just, those were really special. And, you said, what do we take back from ISL? I'm like, I take that back for sure. And that's always in my back pocket. Right. But then just so many aspects of being on deck with, for us in the Cali bubble with Brian, Allison, and Johnny, and even Jason, and just those discussions that go on deck while you're training. The matches, not so much, because the matches are like, there's not much time for discussion during the matches, but it's while you're training, those discussions while we're in the bubble, back having coffee or back having breakfast or whatever. And just like Michael, I took as much advantage of those as I could. And I'd just be like, you know, hey, how do you look at this, or how do you look at that? And bringing a lot of those skills, you know, back here to Georgia, and just back, you know, back into my information about how I'm going to look at things and coach stuff. You know, it's almost endless in terms of, you know, it's kind of like as a coach, you take what you really like, this and that from other people, and you try to add it to what you're doing, to kind of grow your knowledge and what you're doing. And that's what we did. It was also great for me to, like, you know, you watch what Lily King's doing and you go, okay, so this is what, you know, Ray is having her do, and how she's doing it and how she's going about it. And, you know, and then, you know, the same thing with Caleb. And like, I would watch Caleb do some things in training and I'd go, you know, then things like make sense. You go, okay, he's doing that and he performs like this. And you go, okay. And there's the connection between the two. And so it's like some of those just observations were really beneficial to me as a coach and so forth. And that was with so many of our athletes, not only with the coaches that we had there, but with what their home coaches were kind of bringing over to us and what they were giving to them. And so it gave us some real great insight to a lot of different coaches and a lot of different athletes in terms of what was going on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And with this, let's move to the next event, and it is the male 100 meters butterfly. And I mean, straight away, Michael, 49.17 from Tom and 50.7 from Dylan, two great results. But it seems like Max Rooney was another person you guys used quite a bit in this event. Why did you decide for Dylan instead of Max?
Yeah, I think kind of what Sean was saying before, we were just having a look at what other people could do. Obviously, Tom's going to be your staple in that event. He's amazing at the 100 and 200 fly. And so he's going to be your rock solid. You know what kind of result that you're going to get from him. And obviously, he pushed himself really hard and put in some pretty good PBs, I think, across for the first time in a while for Tom. But I think from that perspective, we wanted to give Maxime a shot at doing something else fresh. So he'd been doing, you know, a couple of hard double ups. And so for this match, we wanted to give him a shot at doing something fresh. So the 100 fly was something that we were willing to, you know, have a look and see how Dylan went in it. Dylan's obviously a very good back flyer as well. And I think, yeah, just getting some data before the semis and the finals to figure out, you know, the freshness versus the double events and how that took its toll on different athletes.
All right. Thanks, Michael. And how happy were you with that 49.17 from Tom? I mean, what a result, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, Tom is somebody that's going to get up in the blocks and he's going to deliver you something amazing every race. You know, he's a technician under the water, and then the things that you see him do and the angles that he gets, it's magical to see, not just in the races, but in training and, you know, and warm up and the attention to detail. He was, you know, one person that would have his warm-up time from one point to the other to get prepared for a race like this, and he would hold himself accountable to every minute of that time. So, you know, it's a hell of a swim, and going up against Caleb, it's always going to be a fun race to watch. And I think he did his best to keep up with, you know, the best in the world.
For sure.
Exactly.
And it's so crazy to think that Tom not only counts every stroke he makes, he also knows the exact percentage of effort he's going to put in every stroke. It's mind-boggling, really. He's very innovative when it comes to focusing on the technique for swimmers, I believe. Like things he does, the things he's experimenting with. But thank you, Michael. And Sean, what about you? I mean, Marcin Cieslak and Caleb Dressel for the Cali Condors here. 49.67 from Marcin and 49.02 from Caleb.
Yeah.
So Caleb's going into that direction that his eventual destination is going to be the final, and we all know what he did there. So it seems like he's on his way here. And I wanted to ask what's going on. Is he resting a little bit more? Is he sort of regaining his shape? But also Marcin Cieslak is another person that's been kind of under the radar. But if you have a look at his results, if not for Caleb Dressel, this guy would have been a superstar on your team.
Yeah, I'm really glad that came up because I had it in my notes to talk about this, and me and Brian Schrader, Coach Schrader, were talking about this while we were over there, and it's kind of like who are the unsung heroes per se, and it's like that's exactly right. It's like Marcin is right behind Caleb, and like every event, every time, and like we had the importance of Caleb and Lily King and Olivia Smoliga and for our squad and how valuable that is. But flip side of that, kind of maybe people that didn't get as much as that spotlight, and Marcin was one of them, Molly Hannes, Justin Ress, like these men and women that did unbelievable things to get those really strong places behind whoever got the top spot for us. So I'm really glad that you brought that up because that was so key. And I mean, like, if you look at, sometimes with Caleb, some events he almost jackpotted, most of the field. And it was so key for us. And I think especially in the finals, I think maybe it was the 100 IM where him and Marcin got 1-2 and got the rest of the points. So all the points came to us, and so just the importance of how both swimmers on each squad were in this type of format. And Caleb, obviously you talked about his progression and where he was going by the final, but like, that the work they do all the time is a lot and it's high end, and they came to the bubble that way. And I loved that, our first practice, Caleb, one of the best swimmers in the world, but, maybe known for, speed and front end and 50, 100 type stuff. And then he does the 200 as well. But like, him and his crew, in the water at 9, they were out, they were probably out at 11:01, the entire 2 hours. First practice we got there, he's like, we're going to work. And Coach Troy had his stuff there, and this is what we're doing. And like, that kind of set the tone. And like, I felt like other people saw that as well. And so he was really tired. Match 1, I think. And that his work did not let up, and for a lot of us as well, but did not let up, all the way through. And you're talking about, well, is he resting at this point yet? Not really. I think he just was able to start cleaning up his races a little bit more. I think he took a little bit more rest because, those matches were so tight together, you couldn't really do a lot of work in between the matches. So as they got closer together, the natural rest had to come into play there. And he got some more of that and obviously blew up in the final as well. So I think that's where his progression was going. And again, like we're talking, like all of these, everyone over there is an elite athlete, but we're talking about Tom Shields and how, anyone that's at the top of the world, they're thinking about those things in their strokes and where their breakout point is and their angle of attack underwater. And Caleb's the same way. And he wants to see it all. He wants to see the film. And, Caleb's such a wonderful individual. He's like, talk about learning opportunities. He'll talk to you about anything all night long in terms of swimming or starts or skill work or anything. He's just so giving of himself that way. But that also, speaks of how dialed in to what he's doing and he loves the sport. He's so passionate about it and how he's trying to make himself better.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about, you mentioned, Sean, I mean, all the assets that the Cali Condors have. I mean, Marcin Chesla, you mentioned Molly Hannes, we already talked about Caleb Dresser, Olivia Smoliga. Knowing about what is going to happen on the draft system, I believe that the Cali Condors team, as a whole team, they are going to have to take one of the most difficult decisions, which is going to be who stays and who goes to the draft, So how will you approach this decision? Imagine that you're going to take those decisions.
All right. Well, that's a good thing about Jason Lezak. He's the man. He's the one that's going to be making the final decisions. And, I'm sure we're going to be able to give him some data and so forth. But like, he's the one that's going to do that. And I think Jason, one of his strengths is just his ability to relate to the current athletes, it's not like he was removed that long ago, and he was on the circuit for so long himself as an athlete that the relatability issue is so strong there. And so I think our team loves swimming for Jason as a general manager. They love his story. And Jason, there's certainly going to be some hard decisions. There's no doubt about it. But that's kind of what's going to make the league great going into season 3. And he's going to do the best he can and make the best decisions for the Cali Condors. And if some people aren't with the Condors next year, they're going to be with another great team most likely. And the same thing with the Current. If some people aren't with the Current or Energy Standard or whatever, they'll be with another great team most likely. So, but yeah, there's some tough decisions to be made coming up.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So moving into the next event, which is the women's 200-meter backstroke. I mean, once again, Cali Condors and LA Current dominating the field, 1 and 2 for the Cali Condors, Sean, 3 and 4 for the LA Current. So how was this performance overall from Beta Nelson and Hallie Flickener? Also considering that Haley is not a 2 backstroke specialist, which Beta is.
Seems Beta is another unsung hero, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think if I think about it, I think Beta maybe got second in the first match 1 in the 200 back, and I think she won the rest of them. And she won other things as well. But like, again, this comes up early in the format, and so just really important in regards to like momentum, team responding to what's going on in the pool and thriving off of that, and like feeding the rest of the team that's back in the warm down pool and over in the stands, just like feeding them. And like, she was able to do that, and she was so consistent. She just dialed in every time she got to swim this, got better and better. And she is like, like a lot of people over there, but she's so committed to her underwaters, so committed to those underwaters and making it happen, especially on the last 3 underwaters. Like, she's like getting, further and further and better and just holding that. And I don't think the 202 was, if I remember, I don't think it was one of her better swims at that time. But for Haley really came in and stepped up. She swam the 2 back there. And like, Haley was a great 200 backstroker. I think she's been, we go to long course meters because she was with, I was with her. She was with the Bulldogs for a while, and I had her for a couple of years, and we go to the Pro Swim Series, and I think she went a 208 a couple times, or 210 long course. I mean, so she can swim backstroke. I mean, she can swim almost anything, right? But the 203.0, I'm almost positive that was her best time, personal best time at that point in the short course meters. So she really stepped it up there too as well. And you can see how she swam it. She knows how to swim the 200, right? She'll swim any 200 really well. But yeah, I mean, I obviously having that, and we put Haley in at that time, and she just came through and did a great job. And, like I said, like the event before, like it could have gone either way with the Current and Baril taking all those points and, 1/100th and the jackpot, and you get an extra 6 points, right? Because she jackpots, and that could go either way. And so for us to come back and go 1-2 and Helena and Allie just 3 and 4 right behind us, I mean, it's like that's how close these matches were and how great the competition is.
Yeah, definitely. And Michael, talking about these results, I mean, Helena Gazon and Allie Love get the job done for the team. And my question is the next one. What did you notice on the work ethic of these 2 swimmers during the ISL?
Yeah, so Helena's, from my home base, so she came across with me. Funnily enough, the 200 back was something that wasn't really on our radar coming in. She had only swum it once in her entire career, short course meters, before ISL. But again, that just, it's a testament to the details of people like Dave Marsh and Kim Bracken, who can identify, things that happen in training and then give them a chance in a race to just see what they could do. Like, Lena wasn't that confident going into the first 200 back in match 1 because she had only swum it once in her career. And then she kind of just took it. She's pretty good underwater, nowhere near as good as Beta yet, but we learn a lot off watching the film of Beta underwater in comparison. So, so Lena is very, very technical. She's very into getting her angles off the wall right, the depth of her underwater, the breakout. But going over, we didn't have a lot of the knowledge that we needed to do those at the high level. So, every match we were picking up more and more. Every training session that we were participating in, we were picking up more and more, and we were changing things. And I mean, to go at 205 for her, without the experience of racing it too much, we were pretty proud of. Ali, again, she comes from, Tennessee at the moment. Matt Credit's very, very good coach, very, technical way. They do a very unique breakout, which, if you watch the breakout, it is very, very technical. If you get it wrong, it's going to slow you down. But if you get it right, it's going to speed you up. So, those are things that Ali has to do day in and day out to make sure that if she's, going to do these things right in a 200 back short course, when you've got so many walls, it has to be a testament to, the amount of effort and the amount of attention to detail that she's got to put in day and day out. Because if you get it wrong in training, as we know, or in practice, then the chances of it going wrong in a race is going to be a lot higher.
Sure, thank you, Michael. And looking at the next event, the female 200 meters breaststroke, Michael, you had Kira Smith and Julia Sebastian race for you in this event. Kira swam a 2:22.20 and Julia swam a 2:20.89. And here's the thing, Julia throughout this competition set a number of South American records, which is a huge testament, and you can't ask for a lot more from a swimmer when she's already doing her absolute best since she's hitting her PBs. But my question is this, do you feel like breaststroke is a little bit of a hole in the roster of the LA Current, the women's breaststroke? Because it seemed like you guys were using Abby Whitesell a little bit for the breaststroke. Then you kind of switched to Kira Smith and Julia Sebastian solely. And it seemed like this was the element you guys were lacking to be consistently winning those medley relays. Would you agree with me?
Oh, look, I don't think Abby would have ever done the 200 breast, but she definitely did the skins for us. Look, I think, it's a tough question. It's a pretty loaded question in terms of how I feel about it. But, Julia stepped up every single 200 breaststroke. And, she was doing South American records and home records every time. And, she was getting her race metrics correct and progressing every time. I think Kira had a pretty tough one. Again, everybody came in off completely different preparations. And I think, pre-COVID, Kira was already making a change of coach. And as we know, when you change coaches, things change with it. And it's very hard then to go into lockdown and then not swim at all with your new coach. And then you're flying across to ISL, and suddenly you're between coaches in a way. And, you've got a different style of training suddenly that you're doing at ISL, and her home coach wasn't there. So she's trying to navigate herself through a new program and a new style of thinking and a new way to race without her coach, who she hasn't been with for very long. So, she definitely struggled with finding herself. I mean, she's a 2:18, 200 breaststroke. She's an Olympic finalist, long course. So, it's there. It's just sometimes, especially in an interrupted year like 2020 was, some of our swimmers just couldn't find themselves in that. And I feel like with breaststroke, it's a very easy stroke to get wrong. If you're just not in your rhythm, if you can't find yourself in the training pool, then it's very, very hard then to relate it to race. So was it a weakness through this season for us? To being honest, yeah, it was. But on paper, it wasn't. So it was just trying to navigate our way through that as much as we could, match by match.
Fair enough. Thanks, Michael. And Sean, for you guys, Molly Hannes and Lily King, sort of the OG double for the Cali Condors and the breaststroke. Molly swam at 2:21.48 and 2:17.18 from Lily. Now, 2:17.18 from Lily, from one point of view, you can't be mad. It's a great result. But from another point of view, this is one of the first defeats Lily King has suffered in the ISL settings in an individual race altogether. And following this, she ended up losing the 50 breaststroke. How much of an effect do you think this loss paid on Lily? And if you were next to her, was she down at all? Was she devastated? Was she angry?
Yeah, this was really interesting to watch. And she didn't lose season one and she hadn't lost up to this race. I don't think if that's how it rolled out, so media was always talking about it, whatever. And quite frankly, I don't think Lily was listening much, but Lily does not ever want to lose, first of all. And when this occurred, I mean, hats off to Annie, Annie got up there. She did a great race. Annie pressed the issue huge on the third 50. She dropped that 35-1 there, and she put herself in position to win. But with that being said, when it came down to it and it was over and Lily got second, she handled it like the champion that she is, right? And she handled it with just so much composure, and she handled it with she set it up as best she could. And Lily's work ethic, my hat's totally off to her in regards to what she did over there. And that's just, her work ethic showed me that's why she does the things she does. She didn't really let up at all. And yeah, I think she would have been mad because she knows that, I think even before this, she was better. She had posted a couple of better times than the 2:17.1. So it's not like she wasn't disappointed in that, but like it was so refreshing just to see how she handled it. And obviously she came back in the 50 a little bit later on, and she didn't want to lose that. And then Molly got her hand on the wall before her. And it was the same type of, composure and competing like a champion that she was with that, and how she handled that, and it's like that you win, you earn it, right? And so those other swimmers earned it at that point, and Molly did a great job earning that. She took the win, and Lily was so gracious about it. And I thought she was just an outstanding representative of how to handle that situation. So it kind of, that being said, in terms of how she handled that was so, from my perspective, to watch that. She didn't come down as per your question. She wasn't down. She wasn't, I'm sure she wasn't happy, but she certainly didn't wear it on her sleeve, right? Because she knows her teammates and everybody, so much of our experience was like kind of feeding our athletes. Like when people had great performances in the pool, that immediately like shot energy into our box, sent it into the back where everyone was watching on the television and the warm-up too. They'd be like, "Oh, did you hear this? Did you hear that?" And like the importance of how you handled yourself there was really important to move on to the next event, because, and that was a great example of that. It was a great example of that. There's teammates around her. She handled it extraordinarily well, and, not really a bump in the road. I mean, it's kind of like, not like it wasn't a big deal, because, you're trying to perform the best you can every time, but like, she's on track. She knows what she's there for. She knows the big picture. She knows the bigger picture. And so she just kind of got on with it, and that was Molly, obviously at this point, Molly a little bit better in the hundreds and 50s and skins than she was in the 200s at ISL. But still, that was a pretty solid swim. Got some points for us, and so and again, you're right. Like, she's the unsung hero, and having Lily and Molly, and we actually had some others able to be put in there as well. But really strong event for us.
John, yeah, for sure. Lily bounced back the next day like no one else. That went on the 100 breaststroke, and then the sweep and the 50 breaststroke skins. Yeah, for sure. But kind of moving into the next event, the male 50 freestyle. Michael, Maxime Rooney, and Christian Glauconet for you guys. How would you access the performance of Maxime, 21:45? And for Christian, it seemed like Christian was on top of the world in the first match. He broke 21 seconds. He was crushing everyone pretty much. And then for the next two matches, it seemed like he couldn't find that rhythm in the 50 freestyle that he used to have. And it seemed like everything got back to kind of normal here. And it seemed like we're about to see like a 20.5 from Christian at this point in the semifinals or finals coming up. What was going on with Christian throughout the season? Why was he sort of moving around in this 50 freestyle quite a bit? Because he had some 21 threes in there and 21-1.
Yeah, I think I'll address the Christian thing first. I think, you know, for non-swimmers, I think they feel like the 50-meter is a really easy race. You get on the block and you swim 2 laps, or you swim 1 lap, and you know, it's done and dusted. But you know, it's almost more technical and more specific than some of the distance races, because you have to have every segment of the race, you know, perfectly broken down, and you have to execute so quickly from transition to transition, from, you know, the starting block all the way through to the final touch very quickly. And if you're off in one segment by 0.1 or 0.2, it just slowly starts adding up by the end of the race. And you know, for somebody like Christian, you know, when you're in work, and we stayed in work just like Callie did throughout the whole time over in ISL. You know, there's going to be ups and downs, and the sprinters definitely don't cope in work as well as the distance swimmers do. You know, so there's going to be some ups and downs. You know, if you have one harder day in the pool, it's going to give you an extra couple of days of recovery. And you know, for Christian, he is what we'd call a pure sprinter. You know, he definitely loves a good 50, and this is a repeat, I think, of Worlds with the first and the second there. So yeah, I think, you know, when he's in work and things are a little bit tired, you know, it can affect his racing. And obviously, as he starts freshening up a little bit towards the end, then he's back on, and he has all those segments going. And he works with Dave, and Marshall's a very, very technical guy, very creative, and understands swimming obviously intimately. So they were always on top of exactly what he needed to do. In terms of Maxime, man, he's a really cool guy. Maxime's really cool, really down to earth, fun-loving, smiley, loves to dance, loves to, you know, tried to be a TikTok influencer over there and everything. So that was quite an interesting ride for us with him. But no, this is the first time I think he did the 53 without that 100 fly beforehand. So it was a bit of a change of preparation for him in the pre-race stuff, because obviously when you're doing the 100 fly, you're the first in warm-up, and you know, you do things very specifically for the 100 fly. And I think he'd be probably the first to admit that maybe the change of routine, while we wanted to try different things from an LA standpoint, may have just got him a little bit going into this race, and just you know, where exactly he needed to prepare in the terms of his timing for this race. And I remember talking to him after the end of ISL, and the things that, you know, one of the biggest things he learned was, you know, getting the specific preparation times correct. And he watched Tom a lot with that. And I feel that's something that, you know, you'll probably see him go from strength to strength on in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And we all know that the 50 freestyle is one of the most difficult races because, in my opinion, you have to get everything perfect: the start, the touch, the number of strokes, hitting the wall correctly. So, Sean, my question would be, how mentally do you think it is for Caleb to wrestle? How mentally taxed do you think it is for Caleb, who took the victory here with a 20.52, so a very fast time leading into those finals, sorry. So how mentally taxed it is for him to handle that pressure, specifically in the sprints events, you know, 53, 50 butterfly skins events, 100 freestyle.
Yeah, I think that's where he thrives, actually. You know, I know that Coach Troy wants Caleb in as many high pressure situations as possible, as close and, you know, tight events as possible. And so I think one of Caleb's strengths is his ability to recover, but within that, there's a lot of skill involved with that. So he knows his body and how to help it recover. You know, like Michael was talking, like these guys really, and they're always tweaking it, right? They're always tweaking it, trying to make it better, but they know when they're getting in the water, when they're getting out of the water, when they're doing their last dive and warm up, when they're putting their suit on, when they're going to walk to the ready room, you know, so they have it all down. And I think he has it, he was getting it really figured out in regards to that turnaround, what he had to do in between to prepare himself to go into the 50. So, you know, I do not think like the 50 free, as taxing as it is, like we're saying, every little start, breakout point, underwater kicks, hitting your wall, hitting your finish, stroke count, is important to execute the best swim in regards to where you are that day. I think it's just another race for Caleb. You know, it's not taxing him more or less than any other race, because he knows the routine. He knows where he wants to go ultimately and continually going there, not just that day, but, big picture stuff. And that's part of the deal. And so I think it's a skill also not to allow taxing events to tax you. And he does it really well. The best ones always do, right? And, the best ones bounce back, whether you had a good swim or a bad swim, like Lily, like good or bad swim, you bounce back better. The great ones do that the best.
Yeah, they always find a way. Yeah.
Yep. So I don't think it taxed him more or less than anything else. He has it down so well.
Okay.
Sean, we actually sometimes we implement this in the match analysis, sometimes we don't, but I believe this is the perfect time, so we'll make this quick. Sometimes we get questions from the fans during the live, and we actually have a question from a fan asking you, Sean, do you think in the next couple of years a sub 20 from Caleb is possible?
I think that's possible. I mean, if you watch his projection and what he's done before, but so many variables go into that, whether the situations are going to be set up right for him racing a lot of short course meters, what his priorities are and how he's going to go about his career and so forth. But do I think that's possible? I think that's going to be a blast. Someone's going under 20. Someone's going to do it sooner or later, right? Those thresholds are made to be broken and someone's going to go under. So does he have the skill and the mental and the physical and everything to make that happen and the drive and the passion? Absolutely. I would imagine he wanted to see a 19 while he was over in Budapest, but still to come. So I think so.
At least it didn't happen a couple of weeks after Budapest. ISL still has a shot of claiming this exclusivity of the first sub 20 event, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you, Sean. And with this, let's move to the next event, and it is female 50-meter freestyle. And Sean, I mean, Erica Brown and Olivia Smoliga for you in this event. And this is your A team, I believe, for the 50 freestyle, but when you look at it. And 24:34 and 24:05. Were you happy about these results? I mean, Olivia, if you have a look at her in this match, she had an outstanding 50 backstroke, which we, by the way, are going to talk about next. But her 50 freestyle seemed like it wasn't quite up there as much as the backstroke. And even the 100 freestyle, it looked like she was a little more confident in. What went wrong in the 50 freestyle, if anything went wrong from your perspective?
Yeah, no, nothing went wrong. I mean, she wanted to be a little bit better than that. And actually, we both thought she would have. But, it was just a little bit off. And, it's like racing. She got up. She did this one. It was 24:0. But the flip side of that was she got third. I don't think she was going 23:3 that day. That's for sure. She wasn't going to beat Abby. But I think if she put it together, she could have been right there with, the 23:7 if she had the swim, the ultimate swim, right? That would have been her best time and so forth. But she just, it just came up like that. I do remember her being a little disappointed. But that's just where it was that day. And for Erica, I think 24:3, I think that was a solid swim for her. I mean, this was, if we're honest, this is one of the events that, I don't think we won this event one time when we were over there. I mean, I'm just going off memory. If it serves me right, maybe I'm wrong there. But
you might be right. Maybe Olivia won, but it might be last season.
Yeah. So this was one of those events where it wasn't like, a breaststroke or the backstroke, kind of had, or the 100 IM for the guys or something like that, where we knew like it was going to be a lot of points coming our way. And so this was one of those ones. But for this one right here, I mean, Olivia getting on there third, that was a good swim. I think I remember we were both being disappointed it was a 24:0 and not 23 high, but it wasn't one thing or the other that happened there. We've been working on some things to tweak her stroke since then, and I think the way that she's going about it now, I think her freestyle is better than it was when we were going through there. And her 100, you're right, her 100 freestyle performances were were seemingly a little bit better than her 50s there, but like with the way that we're kind of tweaking it and how she's kind of coming through the shape of her stroke and her shoulder rotation, I think it's a little bit better than what we were doing back then. So.
And Michael, on the other hand, the two favorites that got the first and second place, I mean, Abby and Beryl, how is the relationship between those two, taking into account the two competitors that these women are and that they always want to get the win?
And how important was it for Abby to get that W? Because Abby is a huge name in U.S. swimming, and coming only second to Beryl, it must have not sat well with Abby, right?
Oh, look, the girls had a strong relationship. I think, we came together pretty quickly as a team. I think, again, the coaching staff and Lenny really did a good job at allowing our culture to kind of build itself. We didn't force the culture, into place or anything like that. And I feel like these two girls knew what their job was, which was to get 1-2 as many times as they could every single time that they raced the 53. Both of them are very high level athletes. As you said, Abby's been there at NCAA. She's been at that high level racing, and so has B. So they're used to this type of environment, and I think from Abby's perspective, the time is a hell of a time there. So B's always going to come into that race a little bit more fatigued than she probably would love to admit. Just that 100 fly does take a little bit out of her, which is why you would see that we didn't put her in the relays a lot in that 100 fly, because 200 flies for her is quite a lot at the moment. So yeah, I think getting the result was amazing. I think going back to the Abby, mentally over B thing, I don't even know if it really factored into their preparation at all. I think they were just getting up on the blocks and trying to get 1-2 for LA, and if it happened to be that their teammate was the one that took them out in that race, then they were both happy to come away with those points.
Fair enough. Thanks, Michael. It's just that I was fortunate enough to be the training partner of Abby for a little bit, and I just know how competitive she can get. We're not getting out of here until I get that W. So I was just wondering if that translated a little bit. But okay, thank you. And moving into the next event, the female 50 meters backstroke. And I mean, Sean, 25.85 from Olivia Smoliga. You must have been pumped after that, and especially the fact that she was able to defeat Kira Toussaint, who was kind of her nemesis this entire season. It was bound to be huge, right? How happy were you guys?
Yeah, I mean, you said it all right there, and I think she was just hungry for that situation to present itself, and that's what sport gives us, right? It gives us those situations where you go head to head and what's going to bring the best out within you. And this was just that. She was looking forward to it. She was ready for it. She had prepared herself. But then again, it's just kind of like the routine is get yourself ready, perform, get yourself ready for the next one and perform. And so just continually going through, but there's no doubt about it. When she put up 25.85, the box exploded. Everyone was pumped. And we know how competitive Kira is, right? So we knew it was going to be a really tight race, right? There's just no doubt about it. And Olivia stepped up and performed. She put up a great time. And I think we've been talking a lot with a different number of the swimmers here from both teams, but how the progression just kind of kept going and how this really set her up going into semifinals and finals, and she blew it up even more there. I mean, that 100 back, talk about how everyone was pumped. Like when she did that 100 back in the final, it was like, that'll send some lightning through the box right there, and that happened with a bunch of different people's swims. But I think this was part of that progression and setting her up towards that. And we've been talking about confidence this whole, the last 2 hours and what confidence does. Confidence is everything, but like Olivia backs it up with her work ethic. She backs it up with how she takes care of herself, with her competitive edge. It's like, all right, you ready to go? Let's go, and that's what she's all about. And she's so passionate about it. And so, yeah, when it came head to head and it's just down and back and she executed those things and put up a great time, yeah, it was awesome. She was awesome.
Such a short break after the 50 back too. I mean the 50 freestyle. It's
Yeah.
extra impressive in my.
Yeah, but that's like kind of, it is impressive, but like, it's in her wheelhouse,
She's
and
used to it, yeah.
yeah, the training that she does, the training that, Jack Barrowley has done with her and Brian Smith and everybody at Georgia over the past, 7 years or so, or maybe 8 years now, or whatever it is, but it's in her wheelhouse, and it's in all of our wheelhouses to be able to do that and, go back to back and be racing it and have it be quality. So.
Thank you, Sean. And I mean, Michael, for you, I mean, you had Alicia Marsh and Ali Tetzloff perform for you at this event. 27.29 from Alyssa and 26.75 from Ali. I have a question to you regarding Alyssa. Do you think she is under extra pressure, being the daughter of the head coach and such a legendary coach? Is there any extra pressure on her at all? Or does she tolerate it well? I don't know.
I don't feel like she carries it. There probably was a little bit more when she was younger and kind of coming through the system. I mean, I didn't get to know her overly well. Obviously, she was only there for the first kind of 5 weeks before she had to go back. But I feel like her mindset over there was more about, doing what she needed to do for the team, and she was still doing her job over there. So, she was still teaching virtually from Budapest back to America, and I feel like she didn't really have the chance to feel the pressure of having the last name Marsh and having Dave there or anything like that. I feel that she was at probably a point where she's a professional now. And, part of that is, as Sean was saying before, it's a lot of the mental game. And I feel like, she didn't even think about that. For her, it was suiting up. And when she got the opportunity to swim a 50 fly or a 50 back and in the relays, it was time to do her job. And the last name, didn't really matter to her too much. It was more about, being part of LA and being part of the team and doing whatever it took to help us score points.
Thanks, Michael. And looking into the next event, and it is the women's 100 meters individual medley. Sean, you had Haley Flickinger and Beta Nelson race for you in this event. Haley swam 1:00:22 and Beta swam at 58.6. And I believe out of all of the events we spoke about previously, this is the event that Callie Condors kind of underperformed in terms of the expectations and everything, because Beta Nelson with that amazing win in the 2 IM, her sprints were looking amazing. It seemed like she had something really special that's about to happen in the 100 IM. And Haley Flickinger, of course, we haven't seen a single off performance from her outside of this. This was her only off performance, I believe, in the entire ISL. It's quite amazing. But what went wrong there in your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything went wrong. And I think in terms of the Cali Condors, I mean, we certainly had to start making adjustments. When Mel had to go back to the States, and the first couple of matches that Mel was there, she certainly had an impact in regards to what we were doing and how we could do our lineup. And, also, I mean, she broke the American record a couple of times in different events. And so, I mean, that kind of changed some things. And so we had to make some adjustments there. But, with Haley and the type of swimmer that Haley is, I mean, 59 would have been great, but like 002, I mean, that's a good swim for her. I don't think anything really went that wrong here. I thought that was a solid swim for her. I mean, like, obviously, if you want Haley to be a great IMer, it's going to come in the 400 IMer, and she showed that throughout the ISL and throughout finals and so forth. And Beta going 58.6, I always, she probably could have been 57. I thought at some point we were going to see a 57 there from another, she's from another American before the ISL was over. But, she was right there a couple times. And I don't think she really just, executed one thing here or there, but it's like, or executed it wrong here or there. I just think it was where she was on match 10 and the 58.6 came out, but it was still two solid swims there. And I mean, I don't think she was going 56.9. I don't think she was going to beat Baril. If she did go 56.9, Baril probably would have went 56.5. So with the way that she was swimming, especially on this match, I mean, look, she got 19 points in that one. And so I don't really think anything necessarily went wrong. She was putting together great races and great performances, and that, you know, that's just about where she was on that day.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about, well, we already discussed a lot about Burial, Michael, but tell me about the importance of having Anastasia Gorbenko on your team. I mean, Ivan mentioned before that the breaststroke LA Korean on the women's side was a little bit of a weak stroke, I would say, but Anastasia was stepping out, even got to a final in skins event, doing IMs, even relays in the 100 freestyle. So tell me a little bit about her.
Yeah, so Nastia is going to be amazing. I like, she's obviously already performing at a super high level, but she's 17.
Yeah.
So she's only going to go from strength to strength. But again, when we talk about, these high level athletes having the mental ability to, really think about their strokes and think about their recovery and the things that they do in training and how they race things, she's already got a lot of those skills. And I think that's where you see her starting to step up at this ISL this whole season was, an execution of things that she can already do at such a young age. And, she was swimming from 400 IM to, the 100 IM. She was swimming the 100 breast in the relay for us. And yeah, she's going to be one of those names to watch. And she's probably one of those, similar to what Sean was saying before, she's one of our unsung heroes in a way, because Beryl would always, get a lot of the accolades, but Nastia was always there or thereabouts. She was there in the 100 and the 200 IM consistently. She really stepped up for us in the relays, diving a couple of good 104, 105 breaststrokes, which were sorely needed up against, a very strong breaststroke team like Cali and a very strong breaststroke team like London. Like, we had to find something to give us a chance to get in the skins, because we knew for a fact that, either of those teams were probably picking breaststroke, and we struggled definitely in those breaststroke skins on the female side a lot. So yeah, I think just ultimate professional for somebody so young, super talented, super switched on, and the things that her and David March did in training were all about the the execution of skill, and I think that's where you saw her really step up in this ISL season.
Hey guys, I gotta sign off, but I appreciate it. It was an honor. It was a blast. Love talking about it. Michael, we'll see you. See you guys. Bruno, Ivan, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go Doors. Thank you.
That's right. Looking forward to next season.
See you, Sean. And Michael, we have a couple of events left, and
Okay.
we have a bit of a personal talk now. We can get more specific with LA Kind, but male 100 meters individual medley. Andrew Saliskar and Tomoy Glass. I mean, we spoke to a bunch of LA Current athletes with Bruno already on podcasts and so on, and everyone ends up mentioning Tomoy Glass, sort of the guy that no one knew before and that showed up and was open to everyone, was friendly, but most importantly, he was performing up to his peak ability every single time, and he never disappointed.
Yeah.
52.11 from him, great result. But Andrew Saliskar, on the other hand, Andrew Saliskar is another guy who typically never disappoints in his performances. Andrew is one of these guys that pulls out something incredible when you never expect it from him. 53.18 though, right here. How would you analyze the performance of Andrew here? Did something go wrong? Was Andrew too tired? I know there was a stomach flu going around. Do you think this played a role maybe?
Yeah, I mean, Sally's the ultimate professional. He knows his role, and he knows exactly what he needs to do. Again, when we talk about that preparation, like he's right up there with Tom and Ryan in terms of recovery and everything. But the match before this, he missed because of his stomach bug. It hit him probably a lot harder than it hit the other kind of 3 or 4 athletes in our team that had it. So I feel that this was probably a flush out event for him. So you're almost kind of coming back into match 10 was almost like a mini match 1, in the sense that, you know, he's coming back, he's getting back into training. As you know, the effects of missing, 5, 6 days of being in the water means it's going to take you probably 10, 11, 12 days to get your feel and get back into it. So, I mean, after this, he turned around in the semi and the final and was a superstar for us. So I would say that this match was just a flush out. And yeah, Tomoe, yeah, just honestly, you watch him in training and you watch him just do things and the water just moves for him. Like, it's just like he gets in there and he starts doing his drills and everybody stops and watches him. And, you talk about people who have a natural feel and a natural ability to move in the water. And I don't know if I've seen many have that same just naturalness of being in the water. Everything just flows around him nicely.
It's quite special to see. And just one more question regarding Andrew Saliskar. 100 IM is an interesting event to put Sally into, because Sally, from his nature, I think what he's most talented to is the 200s, in my perspective, and you might disagree with me upon this. But of course, his sprints are at par almost with his mid-D events. Did you guys ever consider putting Andrew into 200 freestyle?
Yeah, I think all of those types of options were discussed. We were lucky that somebody like Fernando was really, stepping up into that role very well, and Maxime was, navigating his way through a 200 short course freestyle. I think, yeah, definitely Sally was in those discussions, but in a session where you do have a 400 IM later on, you've got to just think about, where are those extra 1 or 2% in a 400 IM that you need to save. So, that event for us with him was much more important for him to be there and helping us score some points there. So yeah, the 100 IM, again, like I think Andrew and Jacob in particular were really good at just accepting what events they were given by the coaching team, and sometimes you had to take one for the team. Jacob was, I think Helena was the same. Like some matches you're doing the 2 back, the 2 fly, the 400 IM. Jacob had to do the 4 free, and sometimes those, that's just what you had to do to help the team out in those circumstances. And I think Sally was the same. You have an opportunity to jump up and do a 1 IM, and you just smile and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving into the next events, which will be the skins events, Michael, because we already discussed the 2 free before with Tom Dean. So the women's 50 breaststrokes. I mean, for the LA Current, it wasn't the best result. I would say you didn't pass the first round. Julia and Elena, they finished 7th in 8th position. So tell me, why do you think this happened? Because prior to this, we saw that Anastasia was doing this 50 breaststroke skin. So tell me the decision of switching Anastasia for Julia and Elena, and how did you all process the results afterwards?
Yeah, Bruno, I was about to say, Michael, you had the opportunity of going like a completely other direction. You could have had Abby Weitzel also in there and Anastasia Gorbenko. You could have exchanged the 2 swimmers completely if you wish so.
Yeah. So I think, we had a bit of fun with breaststroke skins, just the preparation for it. We knew the 50 breaststroke was probably our weakest event by quite a margin for the females, so the 4 of them, had the opportunity to just do some turns and some dives and some practices, and we were just playing around with the metrics. Basically, it came down to whether or not we wanted to give Nastia or Helena the 400 IM. For this match, we decided that Helena was going to rest the 400 IM and Nastia was going to do it. And that was, again, preparing ourselves for the final. We were just, Helena had, gone from going 440, 400 IM to 432. So we knew kind of where she was at. Nastia had only had the opportunity to do it once before this. So we just needed to see, where she was feeling 400 IM wise. So, we gave Lena a shot at doing it. Abby had been previously at 30.9. So we knew that we needed to just, give it a go. Julia had been, roughly around those 30-point mids, 30-point, mid to lows. Lena has never won 50 breaststrokes really. She's more of a 2 fly, 2 back, 4 AM type of swimmer, but a 30.7 from a New Zealand standard is actually pretty good. It's probably like the second fastest or third fastest all time in our history.
Wow.
So, like our New Zealand record's a 30.2. So 30.7 is not too bad considering, I would say breaststroke is probably one of your weaker strokes. But yeah, the decision came down to why not try something new? Chances are in the semi or the final, we're going to hit a breaststroke skins again. We had to give different people a shot at it so that we knew that come these later events that we could have our best, most informed team on the pitch.
Well, that's actually amazing. Being breaststroke your weakest stroke and almost breaking your national record. I mean, that's cool. That's quite a statement. But on the other hand, Michael, on the men's backstroke skins races, I mean, completely the opposite. Ryan Murphy, Dylan Carter, they both qualify after the first round. After the second round, it is 1 and 2 for Ryan and Dylan, and that's the way they finish, with Ryan Murphy once again taking the victory. So you described before how you were training with the women's for the breaststroke skins races, more like a chill training before the races because you knew it wasn't your strongest stroke. But on the other hand, here on the backstroke skins, you know that Ryan and Dylan have the pressure, because this is the stroke that you are the best at. So tell me, how was the training? And afterwards, were you happy with Dylan and Ryan? And also, were you expecting Dylan to do so well? Because prior to this, you were using Tom Shields and other swimmers, and this was the first time you chose Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan and Dylan kind of train opposite groups, right? So Ryan trains with the cow group, and Dylan trains with the Team Elite group with Dave. So they didn't. It was a little bit of a different dynamic in the females. Ryan again is Ryan Murphy, the ultimate professional who knows what he needs to do, especially in a 50 back. I think Dylan's always got it in him. I think Dylan is one of those swimmers who just has, like I said with Tomoe, just some natural feel and some natural talent just there. And when he gets it right, it is beautiful to watch. And I think this whole match, you'll see that Dylan he turned it on. And I think the skins was just the penultimate, part of a great match for him. So, for him to get through all those rounds with Murph was fantastic to see. And you're not going against a slow field there. You're going against probably the strongest backstroke field that can be put up with London and Kelly, and the amount of top line swimmers that you're going up against. I mean, Guido, Dina, Coleman Stewart. You're not beating no ones to get to the final with Murph. You're beating the best skin swimmers in backstroke in the world to get there. So again, it's a testament to his preparation and his mindset, and him and Murph definitely hyped each other up for the skins. And we needed just the wins. I think going into the semis and the finals, it's good to showcase yourself and to finish the match with a clear statement win. Was something that we could carry over to the semi-final, and momentum in all sports is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Michael, somewhere around this time in the ISL bubble, there was a bit of an incident between Justin Bress and Ryan Murphy.
No, it was Coleman Stewart.
It was Coleman Stewart. I'm so sorry. Between Coleman Stewart and Ryan Murphy. How much extra motivation did this provide Ryan Murphy? And if at all it did, was he sort of eager to get that W over Coleman Stewart? Do you know by any chance?
Oh look, I think everybody wants to beat everybody at the end of the day. I don't know if anything like that would probably affect Murph too much. I feel like he's been in it. He's a world record holder, an Olympic gold medalist. I think probably deep down it would probably give him some extra pep. But when he gets into the water and when he's preparing to do his race, it comes down to all those metrics, all those things that he's done day in and day out in training. And I think that, Coleman and whatever happened there was probably the furthest thing from his mind during the race. Murph is Murph. I think maybe if it happened to anybody else, you might have seen a little bit of a different reaction. But I think he's always going to keep things pretty above board and focus in on doing what he needs to do, which is winning.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. And I'm sorry for stirring this up a little bit, but conflict in the swimming world is so rare that we kind of have to seize every opportunity. But
No, it's definitely interesting to be a part of, because like you said, there hasn't been too much conflict, and Brett Hawke's all about his rivalries, and hopefully we get to see some more rivalries going forward, and I think from next season onwards things will start ramping up. I think the hard thing about this ISL was everybody was just so appreciative of the fact that we got to be there and we got to race, and I think that was the overarching theme. I don't know if the competitive side definitely ramped up, especially towards the final, but throughout a lot of it was just, we're thankful to be there. We're just happy to be around each other. We're happy to be in the water racing again. And I think that kind of theme carried over, and whether or not rivalries and some, other items kind of start building up over the next few seasons, I guess we'll find out.
Thank you, Michael. And that about concludes our match 10 analysis. Thank you so much, Michael. And guys, if you're watching this, thank you so much for all the participants. Tom, thank you so much for joining. But with that being said, Michael, before we end, do you have any final words to the LA Current fans?
Oh, look, I think, things are going to change ISL-wise, obviously, next season. And I think, big things are ahead. I think Dave Marsh and Lenny Krasberg and the whole coaching team are going to continue to put together a fantastic roster. We don't want to be the second best American team. So let's see how next season goes.
All right, Michael, thank you. And what about a shout out to the Kiwi fans?
Oh, yeah. Shout out to all the New Zealanders. I don't know if anybody will be up at 6 to 8 a.m. It's a public holiday today, so everyone's probably in bed, relaxing, making the most. School starts for a lot of kids this week, so everyone's probably on holiday in their batches and relaxing right now.
Don't worry, Michael. We'll be uploading this podcast. People will see you.
Thank you very much, Michael, and good morning to you. Enjoy your Monday.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And thank you for everyone who was with us and watching. Our next podcast will take place not Tuesday as typical, but Wednesday, actually. And the one following this will take Friday. And our analysis of semifinal 1 will take place next Sunday. Please join in. And thank you so much for being with us.